Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, if you have any questions throughout the session, if you're joining us on Zoom, just look at the top of the bottom of your screen. Wherever your Zoom controls are, you should see a little button that says Q&A. Click on that, type in your question, hit submit, and I'll get to those at the end of the session. If you're joining us on YouTube right now, just feel free to use the live chat function wherever it happens to be on your screen. Otherwise, if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, just leave a comment underneath, and we'll get to those at the end as well. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's national diagnostic technical trainers. Been in the training department the last 10 years or so, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep with Snap-on. So I had about 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they service, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic. And before I did that, it was 8 years at Subaru, so worked in a dealership, and I guess over time became the default diag guy in the shops. I always ended up with those drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher type cars that would come into my bag. Then before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. Our topic today is Fast-Track Intelligent Diagnostics, speed up your workflow. Now, I know I oftentimes have many of these classes are kind of universal, right? They'll work on any tool, no matter what you have. In this particular case, this is going to be just about Snap-on exclusive Fast-Track Intelligent Diagnostics function, kind of a what it is, what it isn't. There's some misconceptions out there as to how it works and what it does for you. But really, when it boils down to it, just at the bottom of that slide right there, it's going to really speed up your workflow. It's going to save you a ton of time by not having to do a lot of manual processes that you might be used to doing. So I like to talk always about having a good, repeatable diagnostic workflow. And this is another thing that this gives to us. First thing we want to do, of course, is do a pre-scan after we've already checked the vehicle in, of course, but we'll do a pre-scan on it, check all the systems for codes, make sure there are no codes, or if there are codes, we know what we need to diagnose. Then after we've come up with codes, we'll have to get in, of course, the diagnosis phase, which is where we're going to spend our time here on the Fast-Track Intelligent Diagnostics. Then after I'm completed my diagnosis and I know what I need to fix, then I'll go in and actually do the repair, fix the problem. And then maybe, depending on what you fixed and what you repaired and what the vehicle is, you may need to do some sort of a reset, relearn, recalibration to that vehicle, to that system, depending on what it is. And then, of course, after I'm done with that, I want to take a road test, make sure I verify operation, and do that post-scan at the end. So like I said, we're going to stick to diagnosis for this particular session. So if codes are found, after we do our pre-scan, determine an action plan. So we need to first gather information. Now, most techs I talk to nowadays are like, yeah, it's just information. I really need that information in order to fix the car, diagnose the car properly. So things like TSBs, that should be first and foremost the thing that you would want to look at first, because the manufacturer may have already figured out this problem that you have. Next one's OEM information. I might need to learn the R&I procedure or the diagnostic flow chart, what have you. Real world repair information. What have other techs done in this particular situation? And I want to be able to draw off a large amount of that data to see, what are the trends on this vehicle. Data stream. Of course, I'm probably going to be reading PID data. I actually just did a class last weekend on interpreting scan tool data and so on. But going through the data stream, knowing what PIDs I need to look at, knowing what values I need to look at will be very helpful. Functional tests, bidirectional controls, special functions, output controls, whatever you want to call them. I may need to do some of that. And then component testing. I want to actually test the component to see what the problem is. And then in that idea is to verify the failure, right? I want to verify that the part has indeed failed. And then, of course, after the fact, after I'm done, I want to verify again to make sure that that part is working, the new part is working. So that's all very important stuff. And this can take a while. This can take a while to look up all this information because it may be in various different places. Start at the top of that list there, TSBs, right? So how many TSBs could there be on a vehicle? Now, these are all, of course, rhetorical questions. Just kind of think about what you might experience or what your answer is in your head. So how many TSBs could there be on a vehicle? Could be hundreds. Could be 1,000. Depends on the vehicle, I guess. How long would it take you to look up the TSBs related to just that specific code on the vehicle? Could take 10, 15 minutes. It kind of depends on what your situation is with your information. Are you sure you found all the TSBs that are related? Because just because you go through it doesn't mean you necessarily have all the TSBs. Maybe you have 3 out of 5 or whatever it happens to be. And then are you sure you have the latest TSB information? One of the other exclusives that Snap-on has is that we get the TSBs from the manufacturer pretty much immediately. It's just everything's delivered digitally now. And then due to our process to get it into the tool where you can actually access it, or into ShopKey or Mitchell, it's within 2 to 8 weeks. Just kind of depends on where we are in the update cycle there. So it's considerably faster than anything else that's out. Next one's OEM information. What OEM information do I need in order to diagnose this problem? Do I need a diagnostic flowchart? Could be. Do I need wiring diagrams? Could be. Specifications, any torque specs, any sort of drivability specifications. What do I need to see? Removal and installation procedures, labor times. I might need to know all of that information. I can gather it depending on what I use for information, of course. Now, how long will it take to find all this information? Depending on what you use, it could take 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. It kind of depends on what you're doing. And is your computer across the shop? Could be. Do you need to log into that other computer in order to access it? Do I need to reload the vehicle? Do I need to reload all the information, the search criteria? It's possible, depending on what your situation is. How about real-world repair information? We talked about how important that is. What have other technicians done in this situation? And do you have access to real-world repair information based on billions of successful repairs? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. It depends on what you use for information. If not, if you don't have that available to you, how do you find out what other techs have done? Is it another information service that might be out there? Or do you phone a friend? You call your buddy down the street at the dealership and say, hey, when you've seen this problem, what's the solution to this? What have you seen in this case? We've done it before. And we'll probably do it again, but having that real world information. And how long will it take you to find that information specific to the code? Once again, some other information services, I know I've used them before, and you might have to scroll through pages and pages of information before you find something that'll help you out specific to the code. How about data stream? Think about analyzing the data, recording the data, looking at the data. How many data PIDs can there be on a vehicle? There can be thousands of data PIDs, even just in one module. It's depending on how complex it is. It could be pages and pages and pages of PIDs. And do you know which PIDs you need to look at for this code? Maybe you'll look at a few of them. Maybe there's some other ones you might not have thought of that you might need to look at as well. And do you know which PIDs are irrelevant to the code? Some of them might be fairly obvious. Like if I'm looking at, say, a Misfire, I probably don't really care what the left window switch is doing unless there's a really bad wiring problem in the car. But, which ones don't I care about? I don't need them. Do you know what known good min and max values are for that particular PID as well? Because you may or may not have that information. Manufacturers sometimes publish it, but not always. So I need to have a lot of this information. Then functional tests. How many functional tests, special functions, resets, and relearns are available for a vehicle? Could be dozens, could be 100. Depends on what kind of vehicle it is and how many different ways we can go about and work for that code in question. And do you have access to information based on how to look it up, where to hook it up, and what good looks like? Do you have all that information at your fingertips, or do you need to look it up elsewhere? All of this that I've just talked about takes time. Time is a very precious resource, especially nowadays. So we need to be able to have access to this information quickly. And if we can have the tool help us out, even better. So that is what brings us to what is Fast-Track Intelligent Diagnostics, right? So Fast-Track Intelligent Diagnostics, in short, simple elevator pitch, whatever you want to call it, it links problems to solutions, enabling the technician to complete the repair quickly and confidently. It's going to be everything you need and nothing that you don't. It's a great filter. So Fast-Track Intelligent Diagnostics provides us with SureTrack information, real fixes, filtered TSBs, smart data, specific functional tests, specialized resets, guided component testing, and customized test meters only for the vehicle you're working on, only related to the problem being solved, all on one screen, all at the same time. So it's going to filter out all the noise and brings us to what we need to focus. So how is that different than anything else that's out there? Remember how I said this is exclusive. Exclusive means, well, we're the only ones who have this, right? So Intelligent Diagnostics uses 2.65 billion repair events and growing every day, 356 billion data points for our smart data, the broadest vehicle and sensor connectivity on the market. That's with the guided component test function, and the most comprehensive OEM technical library with Shopkey and Mitchell. So it has all this information and it uses this data in order to find known goods, known bads. What do I need to look at based on this criteria for this vehicle? So let's look at how it would work on this example vehicle here. We got a BMW. And if we look on the left-hand side, that is the vehicle summed up throughout the whole vehicle. And if we look on the right side, this is how Fast-Track Intelligent Diagnostics is going to filter that down to just the relevant information. So it's got 28 control units. That's going to be true on either side of that. Number of codes possible is 2,470 codes possible on this particular BMW. I am only caring about one code at a time. So that's the one we click on and that's the one we get. TSB's recalls and campaigns for the vehicle, 654. There's one that applies. Number of data parameters possible, 2,361. Brings it down to 11. Number of functional tests, resets, and relearns, 482 of them. Well, only 6 of them apply in this case. Total component tests, 395, down to 10. And then SureTrack real fix tips, that's more of that real world information, 1,228 tips on the vehicle, brings it down to just 2 bits on the screen there. Right? So with that overview now, kind of a little bit better understanding of how it works, let's actually walk through it. I'm going to just choose a couple different vehicles here. I'm going to pull up my scan tool here. First one's a 2012 BMW 3 Series. It's going to be very much like the one we just had on the screen there for the filter. And I'm just going to go into scanner. And like I said, first thing we want to do is a code scan, of course. And we'll do a pre-scan. It's going to scan through all the modules and come back with a code. In this case, we plugged in a cylinder 3 Misfire, so that's what we have to work on. So all I need to do, oh, and by the way, I didn't get into this earlier, but this is available on Apollo, Triton, and Zeus. Any of those, Zeus Plus, Zeus, regular Zeus, D10s, D8s, D9s, whatever, as long as it's an Apollo, a Triton, or a Zeus, as long as it has an active software subscription or a prepaid plan available on it, that has to be current. As long as all those things happen, oh, and Wi-Fi needs to be connected too. As long as all of that is kosher, then we can just hit diagnose and it'll bring us in to this information. Now, the reason we need a Wi-Fi connection, of course, is because it brings that data down from Snap-on servers. So it has all this information up here, brings it down, filters my list based on what's on the tool, based on vehicle year, make, model, engine size, and code. Also, as I said earlier, we want to have a nice repeatable diagnostic workflow. And that's what this gives to us. If I just go top to bottom, left to right, and just read this like a book, go through every single one of these things, it's going to bring me through a repeatable diagnostic repair process. So first thing, it starts with a code. And then if I click on the code, actually, if you had multiple codes here, you'd be able to switch back and forth, even between multiple modules. If I had 20 codes on a vehicle, I could simply click it from the drop down and it would refresh. After that, first thing, as we said, is TSBs. That's the first thing we always want to check. And if you worked in a dealership, that was drilled into your brain. I know it was for me. Even aftermarket, you will too. But TSBs for sure. So we're going to go in here, and it says the first one is engine misfire due to failed ignition coil. Okay, that makes sense. Let's see. Cause. During operation with high temperature fluctuations, different materials used in Bosch ignition coil construction can deteriorate over time, leading to a failure. So what happened was they originally put coils from Bosch in there, and that was their supplier, and they found over time they would have cracks and issues with the materials. So they said, all right, so now we need to replace them with these Delphi coils, which you can see there. They have kind of like a metal sleeve on there. So for vehicles with this engine, which have been in service for over 2 years or 10,000 miles, during the first service visit, due to ignition coil failure, replace all Bosch ignition coils with Delphi coils, and that's your fix. If any coils were replaced previously with Delphi part, it does not need to be replaced. And then for the newer bodies with the N52 engine, place all Bosch ignition coils or replacement Delphi coils under these situations. So basically it just says, hey, we had a failed part, a commonality in there, and now we just need to replace it with this new revised part that is better. And that happens an awful lot out there. They'll notice that, hey, you know, actually in real life, these things don't last as long as we wanted them to. So here's a revised part that you can have. Now, if you didn't have this information available to you, you might think, well, I'll just replace it with another Bosch coil. And in this case, that would probably end up with a comeback down the road. Maybe not right away, but if that coil just failed again for the same reason the original one did, that could be a problem and that could be a comeback. So having that information at your fingertips and checking those TSBs right away, that can solve a lot of problems. And once again, based on the hundreds of TSBs on this vehicle, well, there's only one that matters when I'm working on this particular problem, P0303. Over here is going to be that real world information. We got a little bit up the top and a little bit down the bottom. This is going to be our top repairs graphs. This is going to be based on repair orders. However many thousands of repair orders, we can see a lot of cumulative incidences there. Number one's a coil, which makes sense because apparently they had awful coils in there. Replace spark plug. More than likely that's going to happen because, well, if I'm replacing the coils, I'm in there already. Might as well. Here's another one, though. Cleaned the throttle body. And that's only 28 based on 1,400 of the spark plugs, though. Reprogram powertrain control module, replace the fuel injector, and clean the engine fuel system. So you'll notice that it's replaced, cleaned, reprogrammed, whatever it happens to be. It gives you that little action word at the beginning, just so you can kind of understand what happened. Next one down is going to be smart data. And this one, I think, is one of my favorite parts of this whole software package here, the smart data, because what it does for me in one click would take me 15, 20 minutes or more the other way of doing it, because you can still do it manually if you wanted to, but I would rather just have the computer do it for me. So if I go in here, I'm on a simulator, so I just have to pick the module, but there is my data. Now, not every data PID is going to have a flag on it. In this case, we don't see any flags. We'll look at another one that will. In this case, we don't see any min-max values, and that's fine. Maybe there aren't any that are pertinent to this situation. But you'll see that I only have certain PIDs here. I only have a couple different PIDs. Now, if I were to go in and do a custom data list, I could still do that. You'll also notice that I have multiple lists in here. So if I have multiple lists on this, on the vehicle that supports it, most vehicles we have now support the building across multiple lists. But things like smooth running values, right? So let me put in my other cylinders. This is just a demo, so pulls out for 4-cylinder. But there we go. There's my smooth running values, and then maybe I wanted my oxygen sensor control, so I could look at my before and after cap, or before cap voltage, after cap. I can still do this, and then it would just bring it back here, and it's going to bring up my information back here again. So I could go in here and do this. I could go in there and set PID triggers on there. If I go over here, I can set this. I can go to setup, and I can turn my PID triggers on, and I can set multiple flags on multiple PIDs. But how long is that going to take me? It's going to take a long time, and I don't have a ton of time here when I'm trying to go through a diagnosis. So I could do it manually, but I'd rather have the tool do it for me automatically. And of course, once it does flag, it's going to save it for me too. I'm just going to exit out of that. Now I could go back into my data list, or I can go into any of my other data lists from here as well. Back up, come down here. Next one's going to be functional tests and reset procedures. So that's any of my bidirectional controls or anything like that. So we have actuate throttle valve on each of the injectors here. So that's going to be like an injector kill. So if I wanted to go to my cylinder 3, make sure key is on and engine running is idle. Depending on engine configuration, maybe give it a fire order rather than physical order. And I can just hit start, and it's going to go through and it's going to cycle the injector off. And then it'll come back on after it's done, after the 10 seconds. So I can see how does it run if I kill the injector. So if I kill the injector and it runs the same, could be the injector. If I kill the injector and it runs worse, then I know it's probably not the injector, right? So I guess it possibly could be, but more than likely it's not. And then if I needed any other functions, it's still available down here. If I wanted to go into special functions, I could do that and then back up. Next one, of course, is guided component tests. So we have accelerator pedal position sensor, which could be a possibility, crank sensor, both cam sensors, compression test, ECM information. So maybe I need the pinouts from the ECM. Different ignition tests. If we're dealing with a misfire, we could certainly have an ignition test that's available. Throttle motor test, possibly, throttle position sensor. So if I wanted to go in here and say do like the compression test. So relative cranking compression secondary probe test leads. This is a cool little test we actually added a couple of years ago. So this is a cranking compression test. Check to use with the supplied regular test leads. The regular yellow and black test leads that come with the tool. So if it's on a Triton or a Zeus, it would be available. And it's going to go, it's going to tell you how to do it. It's just going to walk you through it. And what it does is it uses the test leads that come with it, but it puts it in an ignition event, so to say. So it sets it up as an ignition. And you would actually see the waveform going back and forth. Let me see if I can simulate this actually. Put it on not sure. Let me see. So what it does for us, of course, is it sets the voltage automatically, sets the time base automatically. All right, and then you just kind of check and see your information. So yeah, it's not exactly doing what I was thinking it was going to. But we do have some information on the screen. So it would automatically sets up the voltage, automatically sets up the time, and then you would be able to see the pattern. It's going to tell you what it's supposed to look like. It's going to look something like. All right, and then you can do a trigger to show you what cylinder is what in the firing order. So that's kind of a cool little test that we added in there, using the ignition test, but using the regular built-in leads on the battery while cranking the starter. And I can see, do I have a low cylinder or do I not? So that's kind of a cool little test. And then coming down here, we have more of our experience-based information, right? So what's the number one fix in this case? Replace coil 3 in this case, 281 times. If I go to additional real fixes, it'll list any other, and it looks like there's quite a few in here that it could be, even down that a single one time it happened, but it still happened, like PCV hose, right? So it's going to go rank it from most to least common. So that's helpful. Troubleshooter, it's going to give you a reason why it's set. So usually it's going to be possible causes and description, how the code sets, and so on and so forth. And then lastly, on repair information. So in the States, if you have Shopkey or Mitchell, you can actually link directly to it. Over in the UK, it is Snap-on Information Service. That is part of the tool. Over in the States, it is a separate subscription for Shopkey or Mitchell. And it brings it in, it logs the vehicle in, logged me into the account, and it did a search for the. So let's say we suspect it's the coil, because that's the most popular thing. We can come in here and we can get our wiring diagrams, for example. Now here it is, page 404, because that's where the coils are. If I click on that, you'll see the coils are lit up. At least half of them are lit up. There, we can go with these 3 as well. And now I have all my coils lit up right there, right? So I can test. I know what wires I need to test. I know locations, and I know how it operates. I can also go in here and go to, say, OEM test procedure, right? How am I going to test this? So we'll come down here and we'll go to that 303, and that's going to tell us how it's going to work, the important things we need to know about that. And that's straight from the manufacturer. All right, any tips, remove and replacement information on the coils. All right, so it's going to take the cover off. Take the cover off. Here's a couple other things we need to disconnect. All right, we can go through there, and it's going to tell us how to do it. Right, so there's my OEM R&R procedure, parts and labor, all of that. And oh, by the way, I'm on a Zeus Plus, and I would never have to leave the car in order to do this. I wouldn't need to go to a different computer, a different part of the shop. Wouldn't need to log in separately. All of this information is available at my fingertips with that Zeus Plus and with the Shopkey or Mitchell subscription. So that is very helpful. All right, let's change to Chevy. Let's pull up a Silverado. Okay, 18 Silverado. Do a code scan again. Okay, we have our cylinder 3 misfire detected again. And once again, you can see how that downloads it from the internet. You get the little circle running there for a second. So TSBs, there's 6 TSBs on this. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can see different information based on my misfire situation. Top repairs, replace spark plug wire. But important to note on these graphs, whenever you see them, you want to base it based on the vehicle's mileage. So if I only have 25,000 miles, it's here. If I have 50,000 miles, the number one repair is actually the coil. And then at 75,000 miles, it's tied with the plug wire and the spark plug itself. So you can see how these kind of move and gyrate based on the information over 200,000 miles span. Smart data, let's see what we have here. This one has flags. See how it flags the history and the current. And there we go, one of my flags tripped. So in the case where a flag trips, that is going to indicate, okay, that's where it went outside of the min-max parameter, and that's where I need to look. So if I come down here to this flag, it's going to bounce over. It's going to open that up, and I can see where it happened and what the cause was in that case. Scale it up. So you can see that. And then I can see on other cylinders or other data, the solid red line's where it went off. And then the dashed red line is going to be where it happened end time. So I can see on other cylinders, how did that affect other PIDs? How did that affect other PIDs on them? You can actually see that pretty well, right? And it saves it for us. Next thing, functional tests and resets, same thing. So I got a crank variation learn. I may need to do that after the fact, or maybe I need to do it as part of my diagnosis. If it hasn't been done, I need to do it. Fuel pump relay, reset fuel trims, idle time, ignition timing, timing retard, all sorts of things like that. Got a component test. Let's just call it a 500. All right, crank sensor, cam sensor, ECM, ignition test, that sort of thing. Come down here once again. Number one fixes. Got real fixes, troubleshooter, repair information, just like we had before. On the BMW, and in this case, it's going to once again link us right over. Is that the vehicle you want to use? Yes. So it's going to link me in. Now, in this case, I actually want to go back to the top. So it's going to tell me how many repairs were done on this vehicle. Remember, I said 2.65 billion repair events. In this case, 179,466 repairs on this 2500 with a 6-liter. What if I change the engine? This is always interesting. So if I change the engine and go to well, it's probably not going to do too much. If I change to a different 6.0, right? 7.5, 466. Maybe it is. Maybe I picked the wrong one. This one. Yeah, 6.0 is going to be 6.0 because that goes down to engine style. Well, let's see if we go to 6.6. What do we see? There we go. 71,052 repairs on a 6.6. engine. Of course, the Misfire is probably going to be way lower, and it's doesn't even rank in the top 10. But that's how many repairs I have on the 6.6 engine. So that's I always find that pretty useful, that it's down to the engine level, and that's where we get to on the intelligent diagnostics as well, as down to the engine level. So if I have 5 different engines on the vehicle, the data is going to be based on that year, make, model, engine, and code. So it does get down to that level. So of course, it's available on other modules as well. It's just you might not get as much data on those other modules because there isn't as much data out there on those other modules necessarily, like ABS modules, ECM, and things like that. So engine's definitely where it's at, but it is available information for other modules as well. So with that is my time today. So that is Fast-Track Intelligent Diagnostics. Hopefully you got a nice little overview on that, and hopefully you see how much time this can save you when it's time to diagnose a code. Now let's talk about what we're going to talk about next week. It keeps doing this. Gotta fix that. All right. So next week, we are going to talk about hybrid vehicle diagnosis and testing. It's been a little while since we talked about hybrid vehicles, and they have definitely become more prevalent over the last few years between hybrids and EVs. There are some things that they share, but there's a lot of things that are different with a hybrid. So we're going to talk through all those different things and how we would support it and diagnose it using our scan tool. Also, in most times, like I said earlier, I like to be in the driver's seat diagnosing. You can do a lot of diagnosis on a hybrid vehicle just from the driver's seat. A lot of the self-tests already done with the vehicle itself. So hopefully you can come back and check that out. Same time, same place, every Tuesday, 6 and 9 Eastern. Go to snapon.com/OT if you want to watch on Zoom. Otherwise, the 6 p.m. class goes to YouTube like we're doing right now. So if you want to go to youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics, you can give a like and subscribe over there. And then also the 9 p.m. Eastern class goes to my Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/SnapOnJason. All one word. Go give me a follow over there so you can keep up with what we're doing. If you want to see any of the past topics in this series, anywhere from ADAS to vehicle network communications, you can do that. They're readily available for free, 24 hours a day on our YouTube channel. So youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics. There is a playlist for live training available there. Let's get to questions. If you did show up a little late on Zoom and you do have a question, just make sure you go into your Q&A button on Zoom and find it there and type it in. And then on YouTube, if you just want to leave a question in the chat, we can do that as well. While we're waiting, I want to make sure I mention my buddy Keith, who also does free diagnostic training. It is platform-specific training, so diagnostic scan tool training. On Wednesday, it is on Zeus Plus, and on Thursday, it is on Apollo and Triton series. So the first hour of these, they're about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. First hour is setup functions. Let's talk about security link. Let's talk about Snap-on Cloud, set up your Wi-Fi, all of that. And then he goes through code to completion, a scenario using Fast-Track Intelligent Diagnostics. So if you want to learn more of it. And then after that, he takes a little 5-minute break, and then he goes through the different scope meter functions on the tool. All right, so let's see. Let's back up here. All right, so we got a couple comments coming through on YouTube. Hello, Nick. Welcome from England. About 11:30 at night over there, if I'm not mistaken. So get some rest after we're done here. Quinn says hello. Anthony Nofi says great presentation. The time just flew by tonight. Yuck, yuck. Very good. DJ says it really helps get in and out of a diag fast, but guys may only bank on it and not try to think their way through the diagnosis. And yeah, I could see that. I mean, if you're using it less as an aid and more as a load up the parts cannon, like Quinn says, but I would suspect those are probably the same people that are going to do that anyways. Oh, it's got a mass airflow code, needs a mass airflow sensor, right? So I would suspect there's going to be a lot of crossover with those types of technicians. So I mean, we're trying to give you as much information as we can and filter out the garbage that don't. So yeah, for sure. Nick says can't wait for next week. Absolutely, thank you. Quinn says parts cannon. Yeah, we just talked about that. And Anthony says he does have a Zeus, and it's very helpful for him. And I'm glad that it is very helpful for you. Like I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not going to work on every single scenario that you're going to run into, but on a lot of things, it can really speed up and really help with having that information filtered out for you and on that basis. So with that, that's kind of what it's there for, to help the technician use everything at their disposal, including this. Got to use a little bit of that sometimes, to your point, DJ. But the ones who are going to do that, we're going to do that anyways, with or without intelligent diagnostics. So hopefully maybe they can learn a few things as they go through too. Oh, what should the data look like this in this case? Could be a good learning tool there too. So, all right, with that, I think that's the end of the questions. So thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with me, taking a little bit of time out of your busy day to learn a little bit more about Fast-Track Intelligent Diagnostics. Hopefully you can be with me next week. Come by next week for hybrid vehicles overview and testing. With that, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your night. Have a good night and take care.